afternoon. Welcome to another amazing show at Ditokello Tsa Hao. I'm your amazing host, Tshepo Ngoato, and today we're going to be talking about an amazing topic which is called sexual and gender-based violence. And before that, please follow us on all our social media pages at Senec_trust, and you simply go to our call to action number 067-267-3103. And we've got an amazing guest today who would be going thoroughly into detail pertaining sexual and gender-based violence. And when as a human being, do you know about your consent? When someone is violating you, do you even know? How do you even go and report it? It's some of the things that I think as South Africans we don't literally go into detail with. And I have a very young lady here who actually, Aisha, when I met her, I went like, oh. But anyway, you also be amazed of what she's literally going to be saying today. Her name is Oamogetswe, and she's all the way from here in Gauteng. And how are you doing?
I'm good, thank you.
I'm well. Can you please introduce yourself? Where you from? What you do? And what do people really know about you?
Thank you very much for having me. My name is Oamogetswe Chikwado. I am a member of Black Women Caucus, a youth-led intergenerational feminist movement that does work around advocacy against gender-based violence and femicide. Our primary goal is to organize women in communities, informal settlements, organize women who are in institutions of higher learning, but also women that are not in any form of education, training, or even employment. And so we organize also, school-going youth, between the ages of 13 and 21, part of the programs that we do as an organization. And so just to, give it a brief background, we are very practical with our work. So we are not just all about speaking policies and speaking anti-implementation. We are actively, engaging with our constituency, ensuring that we do the work of educating, women, especially women and children, around their rights and gender-based violence and femicide, and also how to protect themselves from being victims and survivors of this very great pandemic.
Yeah, and it's a very big pandemic that we're literally speaking about, because I think in South Africa, sexual activities are actually taking place, and we just came back from Valentine's, it just passed. It passed, and having to look at the issues that here in South Africa, we know that consent is a very big problem. And how do we actually define consent, and entirely when it comes to sexual activities?
So consent in simple terms is voluntarily willing to do something or to engage in any form of sexual activity, right? And when we speak consent, we speak two people agreeing, formal agreement, by the way, that yes, we're going to do this and we're going to do it now and we're ready. Sometimes people are also very reluctant to, withdraw that consent during the act, because I feel there's nothing wrong with saying no when we are about to start, because at the end of the day, no means no, and we should respect that consent. And a lot of people always, misinterpret simple gestures or body language for consent. And that's also where we see a lot of women coming out to say, but I did not agree to, whatever engaging of sexual activities that has happened. So, I think consent in its simple terms has to just be agreeing to whatever sexual activity, formally agreeing, by the way, and not just willy-nilly agreeing. We need to sit and say, yes, we're doing this.
But there's always that misconceptions about consent. What are the misconceptions about consent? Because, yes, I'm a guy, you just agreed on WhatsApp, but now there's always that element of saying, when you get the sexual, say, no, but the guy will end up saying, but you gave me consent. But what are the misconceptions when you come into that?
I love the fact that you said that we agreed on WhatsApp. Remember when I started, I said it's formal. Anything formal needs to be in person. And I think as adults or as mature people, we are able to sit down, look each other in the eyes and say, yes, we're doing this. Over WhatsApp, there's Meta AI now. We've got artificial intelligence that also controls our life. So how do you know that whoever has consented to whatever was not robotics, And so one of the misconceptions, or most of the misconceptions rather, that we see is I think if I smile and we're having a conversation around engaging in sexual activities, or I give you a smirk, that does not automatically mean that I'm consenting to us engaging, in this activity. And, sometimes even as women, even how we dress also gives out a message according to what society says, when you're dressed in a certain way, you allow it. You're already consenting to whatever is above, whatever short thing you're wearing. And so even, body language, sometimes people misunderstand body language for consent. Like I spoke about smiling, just because I'm smiling because we're having a conversation about sexual intercourse does not necessarily mean I'm saying yes. My smiling could be an indication of me being uncomfortable and me just trying to cover myself, in my uncomfortable stage by just smiling. But I think if you're wise enough, you have to, really be mindful of body language, because body language does not lie. I could say yes, but my body language could give it away. And I think, those are things that we really need to be cognizant of when we speak consent, especially misconceptions around consent.
And what are the specific signs that when it comes to relationships, or the misconceptions and the pressure, when it comes to sexual consent?
When we speak about the pressure in relationships, I think there is no need for any pressure. Number one, the first red flag is if a man is forcing you to have any sexual engagement with him. That is the first red flag. That is your first sign to leave. Any man that loves you will not force you to do something that you're not comfortable in. And sometimes me being comfortable does not necessarily mean, okay, let's do it now because you're saying you want to do it. Like how men always say, oh no, what must happen now because like you lost your phone? But my body, my mental health, my mental state at that point is saying to me that I'm not ready. And that's why sometimes people engage in sexual activities under pressure and later regret. And that's why you find a lot of women at a later stage going to report and say, but you know what, I was raped. But you ask yourself, how? Because we had agreed. Yeah, I agreed on your terms. I agreed because you threatened to leave me. I agreed because you told me that there are a lot of women. And I agreed because you told me that, Usman man can give me what you cannot give me, And so I think it's just, if it's for you, it will not make you feel uncomfortable. It will not force you to act out of character. And anything that forces you to act out of character or to do something that you're not, fully allowing or consenting to is just a major red flag. And even in relationships, couples get raped every day. A married woman will get raped by her husband because so automatically you have the right, over your body. Even when you're not feeling it, because I paid your lobola, I must sleep with you whenever I want to, And I think, sure, consent in relationships it's a conversation that a lot of people don't want to have. But I think a lot of women have been victimized by their partners, knowingly and even unknowingly. So I think it's important that we educate women also around their rights, even in relationships, to consent. And not just women, because men also get raped, by the way. But, we really need to do a lot of work around.
And it's funny that you're talking about such, because most of the time we don't talk about men who actually get raped. And I think also cases that have been adhered in police stations get ignored because of that. And this comes into issues of the dynamics of the imbalance between that.
Sure.
How do you how do you define power imbalances pertaining consent? Because there are women who rape men, but now women may think that I've got a consent, but now a man does not have consent. What is the dynamics between the consent imbalance between that? Also looking at age, gender and all that, yeah.
Sure. This is quite interesting because I always wonder, and I think it's a bit insensitive, but I also believe it's my opinion and my thoughts. I've always heard, I had a friend actually who was actually raped when he was young by 3 girls. And I was not being insensitive, but I was inquisitive. And I asked, how did it happen? No, these girls were older than me and they came to me, they forced me, I had an erection and they raped me. And I was like, but how? If you're not willingly agreeing to having an erection, because I think it's in the mind, right? Everything is in the mind. How then does all of that happen? And I don't want to delve deep into that because I think it's a very sensitive topic. But in terms of the power dynamics, we see a lot of women raping men, especially young men, merely because they are more mature than them and they know the right things to say or the right places to touch in order for them to have an erection. But also, men's mental health matters. How do you think that man feels when you're stripping him of his dignity as a man also, because I don't think any man who has been victimized by a woman can step out of the world and still claim to be a man. And, because at the end of the day, if a woman is able to make you bend down unwillingly, then sure, that means even as a man, if ukwazi ukulawulwa into umfazi siZulu sathaba. But hey, let me go back to my mother language. So I think it's important that we teach men that it's okay to come out. And even I like how you speak about the police stations and how police stations also victimize men, because even as a man, you're afraid to go and say, but ish. Hape may fro o nna metse ke sa nyake ka tekra ke rutile ho ira hetse, but jo I was not in it, and we don't talk about it a lot. And that's why I think you find a lot of men who are angry. You find a lot of men who are just so revengeful, who just want to destroy, and not necessarily because he's an evil man, but because he's looking for a way to release all of that tension and pain that he's felt, that society often just brushes off because men are men. Men are expected to be strong. But women are also problematic. In as much as you speak about men being problematic, I think as women, we also need to take account of our actions and the fact that we're also problematic. We also, to a certain extent, play a part in, violence towards men and even women too, because to a certain extent, we allow it by also not standing our ground. And also not being assertive and very firm and intentionally in our no. And sometimes this thing of, maybe he could, because financially he can assist me, financially this, financially that. Some things, honestly, yeah.
So tell me something. What are some of the myths and misconceptions that comes to gender-based violence around the line of work that you do?
Gender-based violence is only, it's only experienced by intimate partners. If arajoli, it's not gender-based violence. But neighbors abuse each other, that's gender-based violence. Basadi balwana is gender-based violence. Banna balwana is gender-based violence. Bana balwana is gender-based violence. Anything that does not, anything that is not right in actual, any physical, and not just physical, but any violence that is, committed to any person is gender-based violence, be it intimate partner or not. But also this conception that gender-based violence is only if somebody slaps you or hits you or punches you in the face. But khutimana ka tjhelete is also gender-based violence. Khutimana ka tjhelete is also gender-based violence, guys, because to a certain extent, that also plays a very big role in why we have so many disabled homes. Because you might find that at the end of the month, the father does not come home ka tjhelete ya the month. But instead, ha fetso gola, o nagana sthembisile wa ko next gore yo phela ke tshwantse gore ke lo betcha, and does not play his role as a father. And that's why you find so many women angry and fighting to say, where is the money going to? You are abusing me financially. For instance, ke gola 10,000 rand. In that 10,000 rand, I need to ensure that bana ba jele, bana ba kena skolo, ba pere uniform, the household is taken care of. And when I with your 50K, you're not even coming home with 2,000, the minimum. Things are bad. 10% of that 50,000 is 5,000 rand. You can't even come home with 5,000 rand. You're abusing me financially. We've even got the spiritual abuse, spiritual violence.
You know what? I'm learning today, I must say, because I didn't know it's some form of gender-based violence. Can you elaborate more pertaining the spiritual violence that you're literally talking about right now? Because I'm very interested to know myself, because I'm trying to understand, because I don't know much. Because looking at the right now, like South Africa, we only look at like Musadi Shapa Monna or Munno Shapa Masadi. We only know about that. But can you elaborate more pertaining that one? Because it's interesting.
Sure, when we speak spiritual violence, we speak about ukudlisana, guys. That is a very serious one. And this is why you find so many, when they say, hey, hi, actually, the spiritual drivers of GBV, guys, get Jesus, simple.
No.
Tlogelang go jesanang, number one. Because you know what the thing is, Umakosi will give you Sklarisa umu jesa, but he does not give you Sklarisa hore uti jese wena self. Because as a woman, yes, ke tlo jesa hore ungrate, ungmamele, ungnikeze imali, ungihloniphe, but mina, I'm not going to be given Sklarisa hore le nna ke etse the same thing. Instead, ke tlo dlala ka wena, ke ye kontle ke lo kizule, because I know very well hore at the end of the day,
Chalete.
he's going to stay with me because why? Kifafaditswe. And also, this is why we find so many spiritual drivers of GBV, And this is also an issue that is still being unpacked, even in Black Women Caucus, that we're trying to discover and find out what are the root causes of these spiritual drivers of gender-based violence. Because gender-based violence is not just a physical thing, because everything, before it manifests in this physical, it manifests in the spiritual. So, what is it that we're not dealing with spiritually in order for us to fight this gender-based violence? And so that is where we need to start. Once. Because, you find men who are obsessed. In Dota, if I can't have you, nobody can. And we will just be seeing it lightly to say, hey man, this man is obsessed with you. But you don't tell us, hey,
You know what? I'm just like shocked because I don't even know that there's a spiritual. But talking about this, one of the things that literally is overlooked, pertaining gender-based violence. Can you elaborate more of things that are literally overlooked, because we know that in South Africa we're just focused on one thing, which is clap, and that's it. What are the things that are overlooked? Because you just mentioned spiritual ones, but what other more are they?
I always say. And I'm not saying that I want to be beaten up or I want a violent man, God forbid. But there's nothing more painful than an emotional abuse. An emotional abuse doesn't end, it's high folly. But physical, ungshapile kampama, kitwile face, 2-3 days ka fall. But emotionally, and I think a lot of people are damaged emotionally. We're bruised. And that's why we manifest all our anger physically by fighting. Because sometimes you might find that, and especially in young children, I never take young kids who are very, they like to call them disruptive or rigidi bully. Those kids are not just bullies. There's something that is going on that we're not dealing with. And it's an emotional thing. Because before you can hit somebody, there has to be something that has been triggered emotionally, So I think it goes beyond it being physical. The problem, the root cause of GBVF is spiritually. And that's where we need to start. We need to start from the bottom in order for us to find out the root cause or the real cause of gender-based violence in femicide. Because it makes no sense that you are killing me because I cheated on you. How many in our forefathers have been cheating on each other? We've had polygamous relationships, we've had monogamous relationships, but it has never gotten to an extent of somebody literally taking a knife and stabbing you through the throat like a chicken. Guys, that is not normal. You can't tell me that somebody who's going to stab you multiple times until you die, that person is normal. At that point, there must be something that is controlling that thing, and that thing supersedes even the physical. It's bad. We need to pray for ourselves.
You're speaking, and I'm trying to think, or you know what? I think we all have been damaged, but we didn't know how we are damaged. Because Mujolo is something that I think we don't talk a lot about. And mostly also dumped you because of someone else. And another thing, you don't even know how the person abused you. And we just ignore it because, you know what, get like healer. But now speaking about that, how does gender-based violence survivors pertaining material health cares literally impact in the work that we have in South Africa?
Access to resources, man. I think it all starts with education, talking. And also sometimes people don't talk because they don't know or they don't understand what they are going through. So you speak about Hohetana and people just willy-nilly saying, ke tla heala. But you don't understand the damage that thing has caused. Hey guys, go rata motho is a risk. If you want to die a fast and slow death, rata motho, you know. And sometimes we don't heal as people. We often think that ngizothola omunye ngizoba right, but how policy manxeba awo luhloko lo lutlileng lo tshwantse le fole before you can move on. Because here's what, you're going to move from that relationship into another one with other talk. Motho o tla ka mathata hae, wena o tla ka mathata hao. When those mathatas mix, it just becomes a volcano and everybody just explodes. Because you might find, Hurman, after we've had an argument and we've said very hurtful things, if we're not into the relationship, if we're not in the relationship for the right reasons, we will not come back and say, Mara, baby, what happened? Like, what happened? You know, let's take it step by step. What did I say? What did you say? What triggered you? Did I say something that triggered you? Because sometimes people take Uzothola omunye for granted. Hey, that thing is triggering. Because what do you mean Uzothola omunye? You're building this fear in me that I must always now hog onto you like, yo, mangayenza so uzothola omunye. Mangayenza so uzothola omunye. It also brings fear. And this is why people end up badlisana, because gathaba no. Tshepo has been telling me ukuthi uzothola omunye. Manje senginomandla, mandla naye uzothola omunye. Guys, ke resta ning, you know. So I think we also need to heal each other. And get used to being friends with your partners. I don't believe in love at first sight. I see you today, I love you. How? Jwang. Ungata for ing. You know, we need to get to know each other first, because sometimes it's not even about a relationship. Sometimes you're in my life to help me cross through a certain journey and heal from whatever I have not healed from. And that just all comes from talking. Arbuing.
Then I'll put something. We know that, you know, in South Africa, there's so many cases that are happening for gender-based violence. And one of them is like relationships, divorces, idliso, but those things are not mentioned in court. But do you think that pertaining court issues, are we giving a fair trial mostly for the perpetrators, and why?
Ooh, the justice system favors perpetrators. If there's one thing about perpetrators, the justice system is their bestie. Because I see no reason why somebody who's been charged with the first account of rape has been released on a mere 2,000 rand bail. Do you think that person is not going to come out of that court ngompinda or ngobapinda? And especially people who have money. Guys, you know power. Money is power. And even if the perpetrators does not necessarily get a fair trial, I don't even understand what is a fair trial to perpetrators. That thing should not even exist. If you are found guilty, you must be charged. And the sad thing is, you know, the problem is women also lie. We've seen a lot of men who've been falsely, you know, charged and jailed, and you find later on musuhat, or maybe the child has been forced by their family to say because maybe the mother wants to bring in umalume sbanbani to come be the new father. You know what, this topic is very sensitive. You know, it's very tricky, especially for me as an activist woman that does work around, you know, gender-based violence and femicide. I just feel like the perpetrators should just be, I don't want to speak from a place of anger, but the justice system needs to favor survivors more. We need to be more survivor-centered rather than, you know, restorative justice towards perpetrators, because these people are living life in prisons. You see our survivors, when you go to police station to report rape, there are not even enough rape kits. There are not even enough trained people to handle rape cases, you understand? And so I think when it comes to perpetrators and trials, perpetrators need to be charged accordingly. But I think also the justice system needs to be more harsh now. And also investigations need to be made, guys, because what does it mean for somebody to be falsely accused, charged, and imprisoned for 10 years? On the 11th year, it's found that that person is not guilty, is innocent, but has spent 10 years of their life behind bars for something that they did not do, or because of family dynamics or whatever the case. So I think in all of this, a lot of work needs to be done. We need to strengthen our working systems, and we need to find ways to work with each other to ensure that justice is served to the people that it is due for, but also those that are innocent are left scot-free. Because also, what do you mean I was charged for 10 years for something I didn't do? Do you think I'm going to go out of that jail normal? I'm going to start doing those things that you charged me for.
And you've been abused in jail also. Okay. What role do you think that traditional healers play pertaining sexuality and gender-based violence?
You know, when you're speaking about traditional healers and sexuality, I'm going to take it back to Amatwasane. You find a lot of initiates who, there's this thing, not everybody who has idlozi must go twasa, right? And kona abantu abazithwasisayo and whatnot. But now you find abogobela abastowed, abarepa, amatwasana. And that's why you find so many initiates, when they come from initiation school, they are no longer in their real sexuality. You might find that a woman has transitioned to a man or has now taken upon manly roles or is now masculine, and then it said, "Hi lo unomkhulu." Or a man, a boy, magabuye mntwasweni, "Hi lo unogogo, sekanobuntombazane," And I think it also goes back to the abuse that a lot of, people go through in the hands of traditional healers, and why most of them are even the way they are sexually, especially, because they are abused, number one, and they're not even aware that they are being abused. That's the funny thing, because ukobalo zothi hayi idlozi lami lithi namhlanje ngiufamatla ngiyakuthwalisa yabo, so it's an exchange of power, but that thing is messed up. Number two, in GBV, guys, traditional healers just need to stop this thing. And for it sounds very vague to say just stop, because it's a money-making scheme for them too. Because I don't understand. If you're going to give me because that's the thing, they're going to give you but they're not going to give you ways of maintaining that sitlare. And when things hit the fan, it's like so I think your traditional healers just need to do things the right way. Lebon haba ka fokotsanyana go makata-kata. GBV lo ne ka hafutseya man, because like I said, it's a spiritual thing. And so as healers, we've been given the unction to function and to heal. I don't understand why re philisa malapa, or because of money. And dingaka tsa neti, they don't even bakaske ba o fastlhara sa loya motho. Ngaka ya neti, tla if kwa how he will stay. If it's not yours, there's no need. Mara le ukuthi ngikuphumusa okudlisa umunye umuntu. Cha.
Yeah, and I think it will literally play a good role in South Africa, but how do we correct it? That's the one issue that we need to face. But now, we know that in South Africa, like as you said, in court cases, that there's been a lot of court cases that they prefer the predator. Now, within your experience and the work that you have done, pertaining some of the cases that you have literally handled, or maybe the one that was unsuccessful, what are the challenges and the barriers, and what literally have you learned from that case?
Yeah, I'm even getting emotional when you ask me this question. The late Mampindile Ngobo was an activist. Mampindile was raped by, please excuse my numbers, I think it was 6 men. She was raped with a plastic rod. So they inserted that plastic into her private part, and they raped her. The justice system has failed her so many times that even at the presidential summit, where women activists came up to say, "President Sikhathele." I don't know if you know of the GBV summit that happened in 2021, somewhere there, but my numbers serve me wrong. Yeah, comrade student said, "Comrade President." Pindile was one of the women who actually addressed and said, "President, kajeku kena lead operation from failed, assistance. Had it been that the justice system, number one, was fair to her, she would have gotten the right medical assistance." Comrade Pindile passed away. She had eventually passed away from depression, number one, and of course from the injuries that she has sustained from this activity, And I think had it been that the justice system was fair and really took the side of survivors, she would still be alive. And many other women would still be alive, I think it's time that we are intentional when we speak about survivor-centeredness and not just speaking about it on a very light. We need more women who are radical. And sometimes radicalism does not mean you must be a man and now, act like a man, sound like a man to be heard. You can still be your feminine self, but be very radical and intentional about saying, yay, guys, And I think, when I think of Mampindile, the story is still very dear to me. And this is why I'm like, but sure. She's just one of many cases where we've seen the justice system fail women, the court fail women, constantly say that, retla. And also this thing of implementation of policies. Yeah, we have policies. Our policies are brilliant, but we do not have implementers. Our policies are amazing, but where are the people that are capacitated to implement these policies? And who are the best people than the people that are going through those things to implement these things? And how are we implementing them if we are not equipped financially also? Give us the resources to implement the policies that you so dearly speak about. Because had it been that there are enough people or people that are trained to implement these policies, most of our court cases will not just fall on thin air. We will have people that are going to say we will not stop until Bani's case has been settled and the perpetrators are sent behind bars. So there's still a lot of work to be done, but also we're going to get there. Black Women Caucus is doing the work, and we're obviously going to come together and stop working in silos. We're going to come and emerge as one great, civil society to fight against this very bad pandemic, because we're bringing in children into this world. We're bringing in young boys who we must train to be protectors, to be guardians. We need to train our young women to be protectors and guardians too, And we need to train our young women and boys that it's okay to be soft. It's okay to be yourself and not expect you to act out of character or to be something that society expects you to be. So we'll get there.
Then here's one thing. We know that the response in South Africa is big. Okay, how do we actually respond pertaining gender-based violence? Like, how do we respond gender-based violence effectively all together as one goal, as a community?
It's all about competition. You know how organizations like to compete with each other, Hori? Women for change, women for this, women for that. But we're all doing the same work. We're literally all doing the same thing. If we can find a common ground of collaboration, and sometimes people, run away from this thing of collaboration because they feel like maybe your organization might overpower mine or vice versa, but we're all doing the same thing. Guys, if we're 5 organizations and we're all speaking GBV, don't you think that we'll make a bigger impact if we all come as one, under one umbrella to say the same thing? Because, masses speak greater than 5, So it's just all a matter of finding ways of working together and just putting our differences aside, because in this gender-based violence, hakuna rich, hakuna poor. Zimbi zonke ziyafana. So
what is the key message of someone who's out there then who's facing gender-based violence, or he does not know probably what should that person do? Like a key message of saying you're a male or something, a message that he has is umbambanga phakathi.
You know this saying ukuthi indoda ayakhali. Mina ngiyayisaba indoda engakhali ke. Indoda must cry. Indoda must cry. Because for me, that's your strength as a man, to cry and show emotion. So, indoda ekhalayo indoda eqinile in actual fact. Musadi o khonang go bua, go ikemela ke musadi o tileng. And sometimes people don't report because they don't know that what they are going through is wrong. This is why it's important to read, guys. Engage. Join conversations. Be inquisitive. Ask questions. Ask provocative questions especially, Go to your centers, your police stations, your recreational centers, where there is information being shared. Join groups, Facebook groups. Everybody's on social media now. There are Facebook groups that speak about violence, that speak about this and that, but also form peer body groups. Forming the society, there are kind of society tsa go seba batho a go be le di-society tsa go fodisa batho le go educate basadi, and it does not necessarily require an expert. We're speaking ra fodisana re bua, you know. So it's just a matter of also speaking and who one need.
Did you go on from our amazing guest who literally went into detail pertaining sexual and gender-based violence? And please also make sure that you follow us on all our social media pages at Senec_trust, and simply go to our call to action number 067-267-3103. And please make sure that you join us next week, same time, same place at 3 p.m. sharp.